how to make samples that other producers will actually use, how to make drum kits that other producers will actually buy because the sounds in them are good and they make their beats sound better. So vector synthesis is a type of audio synthesis where you blend multiple sound sources together to create one sound. And this principle is really important in modern music production. What it allows you to do is give context to the samples that you're making. If we're trying to make a trap drum kit, we want to use and reference trap drums so that they're familiar to the listener and they're a good base starting point. So here's a really good example that I've got here. I just made this like 5 minutes ago. I started out with the first clap here. It's at full volume, and then I layered it with a second clap and also with a sound effect. We've got 3 sounds in here, and the first is the original sound source. Then by adding extra sounds into it, and we can adjust the volumes to blend it in and sort of create our own sound. Now this is kind of like a gray area here. At what point is this sample yours, or is it still the original sound source? And I think that the deciding factor is if you can like A/B it and tell the difference between the 2 sounds, then that's when you've created a new sample. And this is why so many drum kits these days you see are just all recycled sounds, or sounds that sound so similar but there's slight variations. So I've just layered 2 claps here from the same drum kit along with another sound effect from the same drum kit. So I wouldn't really say that that's my own sound, even though it's kind of like a different sound. One thing that I find really effective to visit places like Tumblr or Pinterest and create a mood board or a general concept for the whole pack that you're going to design. And say we're going to go with trap drums. We're going to pick the trap drums and use them as a reference point, but we're going to take these visual references and we're going to try and use sounds that sound like they're from these places so that we can have a cohesive vision for our sample pack. So let's go back to the drawing board with this sample that I just created, and I'll give you some other examples of how you can use sound effects and use layering to create new textures on top of the original sample and make it your own. So I've just got the original sound soloed, and then this is layered with the clap. Now that second clap is a little bit too bright and dominant. So what I like to do is pull the audio back and then just kind of bring it in until it's at a point where I can just hear it and it's just enough. So it just adds a little bit of top end in there. And then I've got this sound effect. This is the original. But what I did with it was I threw a gate on it and I side changed it to the original clap that we're referencing. And then I just played around with the attack and release. And I also pitched up the sample an extra octave just so that we had a bit more of a brighter texture. And when I blended it in, it was almost as if I added like distortion to the whole sample. So this is the sample altogether, and this is the original. So that's just a quick example of what you can sort of do to create unique samples that still have that familiar sound in the genre that you like to make. But let's just say, for example's sake, you want to go with this idea of Pinterest. So this is my Pinterest mood board, and I'm seeing like a lot of fog, a lot of like trees and wood textures, like some nature in there. So this sound effect sample that I took sounds nothing like the original sound effect that what it was. It's basically just a high frequency texture. So knowing this, imagine all the possibilities that there are with recordings and layering external sound sources. You could literally just take your iPhone out and record anything, put some effects on it, pitch it up, use a gate or distortion, and using vector synthesis, just blend it in with your original sound source to create things that sound similar to how your mood board looks visually. I find it a lot more effective to sit down and batch make all these samples. For example, I might just sit down one day and just make like 5 to 10 snares in a row, spending only like 5 to 10 minutes on each of them and not overthinking it. Because generally we're working on such a small snippet of sound, it's kind of hard to tell whether or not that sample is going to be good. So I like to just make them in bulk and not really worry about whether they're good or not. And then at a later date, I can just try and incorporate them into my music. You'll know whether they're good quality or not and just discard the rest or try and resample the rest. So that's it for today's video. I wanted to start working on a drum kit and I thought this might be an interesting idea to make a video on. You can also cop my Splice kit. It's been out for a minute. It's got heaps of samples in it. I used the whole mood board idea to create like a general aesthetic for the whole sample pack. So go and check that out on Splice. I'll leave a link down below. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching this video. Appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.